If you see the Eyestalk, run and never look back. It's incredibly picturesque, the way her hair framed her face in the morning sunlight. The curtain flapped as wind blew in from outside, and birds sang a harmonious tune as I brushed the hair out of her face. Even having just woken up, she was stunning. Time ticked to a crawl as a smile began to shine upon her lips. I started to reach towards her, but then I saw something. It was just behind the curtain, impossibly still. It cast a large, circular shadow through the thin fabric. I felt it was inches from the glass, its shadow nearly blotting out the sun. The wind began to push the curtain again, and the thing outside inched into view. I bolted upright in my bed, a pulsating pain resonating from the back of my skull. My eyes shot over to the window. The curtain was still, a dim yellow light seeping through its seams. Groaning, I snatched the bottle of ibuprofen off my nightstand, pushing empty cans out of the way in the process. I shook 2 of the pills onto my palm, downing them as I pulled myself off my bed. I trudged towards the window, pushing the dirty clothes that littered the floor aside with my foot. With my index finger, I moved the curtain to the side as sunlight began to spill into the room. My eyes strained as they adjusted to the harsh light. The dull gray blocks of the city outline pushed against the morning sun, cradling it against their harsh edges. I scanned my eyes across the parking lot in front of the apartment complex, and then I saw her. There she was, in all her ethereal beauty. Mia Costello, the woman of my dreams, was getting in her car as she headed to her morning shift. My heartbeat quickened as she began to drive away. Mia was an internet micro-celebrity who lived in my apartment building, just a few doors down from mine. She was also the love of my life. All her fans adored Mia, but none of them knew her as I did. I lived near her, and I could exist in her world. The first time we spoke, she picked up a piece of mail I had dropped. When she handed it to me, I saw her beauty for the first time. For the first time in years, my life had meaning. There was something about the way she smiled at me. When she handed me the letter I had dropped, her fingertip brushed against my hand. That little touch sent sparks throughout my whole body. Ever since that moment, we have shared something truly special. Sometimes I would wait until the precise moment she'd leave her house and smoke right outside my door, just to catch a glimpse of her passing by. The way she would smile at me never failed to make my day. That smile was my one and only treasure. After watching her car disappear behind a building, I made my way over to my computer. I pushed the stained bowls and empty cups to the other side of the desk. I made sure to devote some time to her every day. Today was my day off, so I had more free time to give her. I'd spend hours scrolling through her social media pages, reading every comment. The people fawning over her used to upset me, but I've since come to my senses. None of them had the connection we did. They didn't know her scent, her nightly routine, the way she carried herself when she thought I wasn't looking. All the things I learned from simply observing her, watching her. I couldn't keep my eyes off of her. After a while, I glanced at the clock in the bottom left corner of my monitor. I had let time slip my mind while I was busy with Mia. Most of the day had passed, and I found myself incredibly hungry. I pushed myself away from my desk, the cold metal of the chair's legs scraping against the hardwood floor. As I walked towards the kitchen, I glanced towards the window. The light spilled in from behind the curtain. It was faint and dimming, a blend of pink and purple hues. It reminded me of Mia. I made my way to the window, pulling the curtain back just enough so I could peer outside. Cars dotted the parking lot, and the sun was setting behind the city skyline. The forest in front of the apartment building rustled as the trees swayed gently in the evening wind. As I scanned my eyes across the base of the trees, I could have sworn I saw a long, tall figure. It looked like the trunk of a completely different tree that didn't fit in with the surrounding forest. I leaned closer against my window, my forehead lightly pressing against the glass. Then I blinked, and it was gone. I rubbed my eyes before taking a second glance. Nothing was there. Not much happened over the next few days. Sometimes when I came home from work, I'd see Mia. She was eternally beautiful, even when she was just going about her everyday life. I always made sure to smile and wave anytime I saw her. When she would forget to close her curtains, I'd pass a glance into her apartment. It was the small things she'd do that made me love her. Most nights when I watched the new videos she posted, I'd pause the video and stare into her eyes as she applied her mascara. One day I'd be able to tell her that she didn't need all of that makeup to look beautiful. She wasn't like other girls. Her natural beauty was all she'd ever need. After watching her videos for a few hours, I realized how hungry I was when my stomach began to ache. I got up and walked over to my fridge. There were a few cans of beer left, some loose ketchup packets, and a plate of cold spaghetti. I grabbed the plate and stuck it in the microwave. The light clicked off as it began to spin. As I stared into it, I noticed a slight reflection in the black mirror. I could see my pale face in that reflection. The bags under my eyes were deep, my hair greasy and tangled like a rat's nest. To avoid wallowing in self-hatred, I averted my eyes from the reflection of my face and instead looked at the mirrored reflection of my apartment. It was pretty open. I was never really comfortable with money. My eyes landed on something. My bedroom door was ajar. I squinted at it, trying to remember if I had or hadn't shut the door all the way. I don't know how I didn't notice it at first, but staring back at me through the crack was a gigantic eyeball, slightly obscured in the darkness. Before I could get a better look at it, beep, 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 the light in the microwave clicked back on, and the reflection blinked out of sight. I quickly turned to face the door, and it was gone. My heart was racing, but my head quickly rationalized the situation. Despite that, the creeping feeling didn't disappear. I quickly ate my food, turned off what little lights were on, and headed to bed. Grabbing my door handle, I couldn't help but feel uneasy. I pushed that feeling deep down and opened the door. The room was empty. After scanning my barren room, I let out an unconscious sigh of relief. I didn't know what I expected, but I was glad that nothing seemed inherently off. I got in bed, set my phone to charge, and lay there in the dark. My room had no windows, so if the lights were off, it would be pitch black. It didn't take long to fall asleep, especially when thinking about Mia. Even the thought of her brought me enough comfort to lull me to sleep. My back began to ache, a feeling I knew all too well from when I lived on the streets. I was sleeping on the ground. I hesitantly opened my eyes. I was staring at the sky, an endless sea of blue with no clouds in sight. My hands felt the ground beneath me. It was bumpy, warm, and sticky. I swear I could almost feel it pulsating. I slowly sat up, and the most intense feeling of dread washed over me. It was a feeling I could never describe. The ground was an endless, stretching sheet of exposed flesh, like skin turned inside out. Lanky, flesh-like stalks grew out of the ground. They looked like trees stripped of their leaves and branches. A shallow, breathy wind made them sway slightly. I quickly turned to face the door, and it was gone. My heart was racing, but my head quickly rationalized the situation. Despite that, the creeping feeling didn't disappear. I quickly ate my food, turned off what little lights were on, and headed to bed. Grabbing my door handle, I couldn't help but feel uneasy. I pushed that feeling deep down and opened the door. The room was empty. After scanning my barren room, I let out an unconscious sigh of relief. I didn't know what I expected, but I was glad that nothing seemed inherently off. I got in bed, set my phone to charge, and lay there in the dark. My room had no windows, so if the lights were off, it would be pitch black. It didn't take long to fall asleep, especially when thinking about Mia. Even the thought of her brought me enough comfort to lull me to sleep. My back began to ache, a feeling I knew all too well from when I lived on the streets. I was sleeping on the ground. I hesitantly opened my eyes. I was staring at the sky, an endless sea of blue with no clouds in sight. My hands felt the ground beneath me. It was bumpy, warm, and sticky. I swear I could almost feel it pulsating. I slowly sat up, and the most intense feeling of dread washed over me. It was a feeling I could never describe. The ground was an endless, stretching sheet of exposed flesh, like skin turned inside out. Lanky, flesh-like stalks grew out of the ground. They looked like trees stripped of their leaves and branches. A shallow, breathy wind made them sway slightly. I slowly got up, my clothes sticking to the tacky red substance that was oozing out of the flesh beneath me. It stuck to my feet as I walked towards one of the stalks, with all the grace of a newborn deer. It was oppressively tall, towering over me like a redwood. Thick veins stretched up the side of it, beating rhythmically. I placed my hand flat against it. The warmth it gave off was intensely nauseating. Every one of my muscles tensed to keep me from vomiting. I pressed my hand harder against it, feeling it sink in as the skin squelched and seeped thick, sticky blood. But then it stopped, and I could feel something pushing back. I ripped my hand off of it, tacky strands stretching off of it the further I pulled away. I tried to step back, but I couldn't move without exerting a considerable amount of force to drag my feet off the ground. Something pushed against me from inside the tough, gory skin of the stalk. As it kept going, the skin grew tight around it, and I could see what it was coming into a clearer view. It was a person, clawing their way out of the stalk. Their mouth was open, stretched wider than I even thought humanly possible. They yelled out in agony, the sound muffled and guttural from beneath the flesh of the stalk. Then again, another scream came from my left, then my right. They were screaming from within each stalk. The sound of their screams was folded over one another, cascading in a chorus of intense, eternal misery. The sound grew so loud that I felt my eardrums vibrating. Then I felt an overwhelming presence behind me. Every facet of my being told me not to turn around. All of my survival instincts screamed at me, "Do not turn around." But I could feel a familiar feeling swell up within me. I had to see. I had to know what it was. I went to turn around and suddenly I was back in my bed. My body was in shock as I lay there, staring into the darkness. I could barely move, barely think. It took a moment before I had even realized that I was smiling, because I knew who was behind me then. There was only one possible answer. Ever since that dream, I've been drawn to her more than ever. There was something about her being the only person who came to save me in that nightmare. It filled me with a familiar warmth, a kind of deep, burning feeling you only get once or twice in your entire life. From then on, I spent more time watching her. I took a few days off work, then a few more. My boss wasn't happy with me, but I had more important things to be doing. Eventually, I got fired after not coming in for 2 weeks in a row. It didn't matter. I would spend that time more wisely because I'd spend it with her. I barely ate or slept. It began to affect my health, but I tried everything not to go back to that place, to that field of flesh. Then I began to see it more and more. It watched me from the shadows where it thought I couldn't see it, or maybe it didn't care. I could feel that it wanted something from me. The pulsating hunger emanating from it told me so. The very few times I'd leave my house, I'd feel it watching me. Even inside, I kept all the curtains drawn, because I knew if I didn't, it would be there. One morning when I left my bedroom, I saw it behind the curtain. The sunlight painted its shadow across the living room. It made me want to hurl, seeing it that close to me. I grew even more ill, knowing how close it was to my Mia. During the nights when I couldn't hold back sleep anymore, I'd lie in my bed for hours. The darkness in my room was comforting, and the blank slate would make Mia's image more vivid. That bliss was cut short when I felt it enter. It had no legs to walk on, no way to move, but I knew it was there. My stomach would churn, and I would feel it staring down at me. Day after day, it would inch closer and closer. The only thing keeping me from going insane was Mia, my beautiful flower. I've taken pictures of her to hang on the walls of my apartment. Her face made the best wallpaper. I don't know why I didn't do it sooner. When I would tack the photos onto the wall, I could always feel it watching me. Its watching eye leached something from me that I'd never get back. The first few times I turned to face it, it would disappear. After a few weeks, it would just stay there, hunched over like a toy in a dollhouse it didn't belong in. It was almost mesmerizing. As I stared into its reflective pupil, I nearly lost myself. But it wouldn't let me. It always vanished anytime I tried to move towards it. It never uttered a single word or thought, but I could feel its intentions coursing through my mind, as if it were tapping against my nerve endings. Months passed. Mia's face and body covered my walls. Every clean surface was replaced with her image. When I looked down at my arms, my veins would pulse, like they were going to burst against a thin layer of skin. They felt alien, like roots growing throughout my body, siphoning everything they could. No matter how hard I tried not to itch and pull at my skin, I couldn't contain myself. I itched at them constantly like a heroin addict. They would bleed profusely, so much that I had to keep them bandaged. That didn't stop me. Nothing could ever stop me from making Mia mine. With each passing day, I grew hungrier to be with her, to touch her skin, run my fingers through her hair. She barely even knew I existed, but she would soon let me into her life. I could not bear being apart from her any longer. Watching her through a screen, even through her window, it was all no longer enough for me. I had to have her. Nothing. I was in an empty sea of dark, consuming ink. No matter where I looked, I couldn't see a thing. It almost felt nice to exist in a place like that. Before I could even realize, I was knocking 3 times against a door. Footsteps resounded from beyond it, the sound of which bounced around in my ears. A dark shadow was cast from directly behind me, covering me in a veil of shadow. The door creaked open, and Mia slowly peered from beyond it, coming into view with a confused expression. Instantly, I got thrust back into the void. I waited around in it for what seemed like years. During my time there, I saw Mia's face and body flash against the darkness. If only she were there. If only she could join me there, then everything would be perfect. A warm feeling graced my hands. With a smile filled with bliss, I turned my gaze down, and she granted me the most beautiful sight. Mia smiled up at me, her hair covering her eyes. I tried to brush it away, but she softly pushed my hand away and began to lean in. This was it, pure bliss. My life was becoming something I could be happy with, something I could be proud of. It was all because of her. As we kissed, the darkness around me swelled with life, and waves of pink and purple hues washed over us. Her mouth was warm and soft. Pop. My mouth filled with something viscous, tasting of iron. All the warmth and comfort left my body like a crashing wave, along with that droning presence I had grown used to. I opened my eyes, and I was back in front of her door. My knees ached against the cold concrete floor. In the distance, I could hear faint sirens. I glanced around. I was on the floor. Looking down the halls, I saw people, their faces warped by fear and malice. I felt a disgusting warmth start to pool around my knees. My heart sank. Mia. She lay splayed out on the floor, her right arm broken as bright, white bones skewered through her dark skin. The expression she wore stretched and contorted her face into the most haunting thing I would ever see. Her eyes were gone, dark, bloody pools where they used to be. The area around them was dark, bloodied, and beaten, as if someone had crudely ripped them out with a primal force. My hands began to shake and ball up instinctively. Something squelched inside my palm. I forced my head to turn and look down at it. Fresh blood seeped out from the cracks of my closed fist. I hesitantly opened my hand, slowly as if it would save me the pain of seeing what it held. But it didn't. I'll have that image forever burned into my very soul. In the palm of my hand, I held Mia's bright blue eye, still connected to the ocular vein. When I opened my other palm, I saw nothing but blood. I didn't know what to do but run. I ran for days on end. It won't be long before the police find me. My clothes reek of dried blood. Soon, my life will end, be it by my hands or by that thing. I just want to say one last thing. I'm so sorry, Mia. I'll be sorry till the day I die. I'm writing this here, praying that it reaches at least one unfortunate soul. I cannot stress enough. If you start to see visions of that thing, run. Never look back. Don't make the same mistake I did.